Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Redditor Radio, episode 615, coming to you on Wednesday, September 3rd. We're going to preview Clay Helton's dramatic return to the Coliseum. Coming back with Georgia Southern, USC and Georgia Southern, locking horns, 4:30 p.m. Pacific on FS1. We're going to talk about it in this episode, give you our predictions, a preview, and so much more. As always, you can follow us on social media at Rant of Troy. Email us, rantoftroyfansite.com, and our phone number, 818-643-7227. Second Whisper and Show. I'm your host, Michael Castillo, joined with my co-host here in the Rant of Troy studio in Los Angeles, Alyssa Daratola.
Hello, everybody. Touchdown Trojans. I quit. This is my last episode of the podcast. I'm done.
I mean, I cringed when you said it, but it is also still enjoyable to keep hitting the button,
Clearly.
Okay, tell me this. Is it more cringe or less cringe than this?
Hi.
At least the hi is super adorable.
Hi.
Yeah. All right. We'll see if we get to press this button a lot today.
Can I blame Coach Helton for this?
Yeah. USC and Georgia Southern coming to the Coliseum on Saturday. How excited are you for this one?
Not particularly. I'm excited because it's USC football,
sure.
And I like watching USC football most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to do another live stream that will hopefully be as enjoyable as the last one.
Mm-hmm.
I am not particularly excited about this game because, again, it's another game that I don't think we learn anything particularly good from.
Yeah.
I think we could reinforce the good things that we felt about the Missouri State game, but
yes.
I'm not sure that this game... Actually, I'm quite sure that this game will not tell us if USC is capable of beating Illinois, which is like the thing off in the distance that I continue to look out for. It's the mountain that I am hiking to the peak of, and it's out there, and I can see it, but I am still not close enough to it to know how difficult that climb is going to be. So
yeah,
I come into this game feeling like there's a lot more negative to learn from this game than positive.
I hear you, but I don't know. I think that if SC has another performance like they did on Saturday against Missouri State, I think in which, again, I am judging this game on cleanliness and reduction of mistakes and that kind of stuff. If you take care of business and you have game control and you take care, you do all that kind of stuff, yeah, I think you can learn a lot about this game. Especially considering that, we've talked about it before. SC has played teams and played down to teams. At the same point, a couple of years ago, 2023, they murdered Nevada and San Jose State in week 1 and 2. Although San Jose State, they gave up a bunch of defensive stuff in there too. So,
and that's my sort of point, is that I think we saw some little signs in those games that turned out to be meaningful. Yeah,
and I don't think there were those signs this past week. Yeah, there was the breakdown on defense, but it wasn't the same thing. It wasn't the 3rd and 22 scramble that Cordero had in week 0 in 2023. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. A lot of stuff to get to. Let's start with some news before we get really into the game. Injury updates. Jakeem Stewart and Chasen Johnson are practicing. I saw that there was a social media post about Jakeem Stewart entering the Coliseum, spelled like the Roman Coliseum, which I thought was funny, for the first time this Saturday. I'm excited to see Jakeem Stewart because we saw Wayman Jordan last week, sort of a new face. You saw one play of Prince Strawn that was fun. Prince Strahd also dressed for practice. No apparent issue with his ankle. Didn't even look like it was wrapped, according to reporters. So things are looking good on the injury front. But like, I think the more that we can see new players, the more fun you can have in the early season here, right?
Yeah, especially a new player like Jakeem Stewart, who is a potential game breaker. And, you know, I think that we need to give him a certain amount of grace being a freshman and being able to take on all of the responsibilities that come with his position. But at the very least, I want to see him rush the passer. Like, if nothing else, I think that we can go into Jakeem Stewart's freshman year, probably get ready for some, you know, maybe run fit breakdowns and some of those just normal things that are tricky for freshman edges and defensive ends or tackles. But if nothing else, like, I just want to see him get after the quarterback and see what level he can find on that front. So that should be an exciting addition to a defensive front that I'm already, you know, kind of excited to continue to see develop in their rotation, in the expectations of you know, the ability to get to the quarterback and cause havoc.
Yeah, 100%. We saw SC create a lot of negative plays last week. At the same time, you can always continue to do that against Georgia Southern. We're going to talk about that later. Georgia Southern's fronts, not great against Fresno State. And so both on offense and defense. And so this is more of an opportunity for SC to really show their muscle and their might on both the defensive line and the offensive line. Let's get to the other news. New polls are out. Always comes out a day later after week one, because there's games on Monday, right? So it's got to come out on Tuesday. And it came out on Tuesday, yesterday, after we had recorded the Fallout episode. USC is still unranked. The Trojans are 29th in the AP poll if you look at other receiving votes, 31st in the coaches poll. Again, others receiving votes. Jeff Sagarin has the Trojans at number 21. But Alicia, I think the big news here is, you know who loves the Trojans? FEI.
Advanced stats.
I'm proud of FEI.
The Trojans are now up to number 11 in the FEI team rankings, 4th on offense, 46th on defense. Your thoughts here? It's early, obviously. These things don't mean anything at this point, especially when it comes to the metrics, because so much of there's a lot of preseason influence there.
Yeah, SP Plus also has USC up in the top 15. I can't remember exactly where, but yeah, this is the state of what USC is and has been. We've talked about how, for all the win-loss stuff, for all the perception of USC over the past 3 years, USC has just been consistently, from the advanced stats perspective, a 15th kind of team, somewhere between like 11 and 18, just locked in there, no matter ups and downs, lefts and rights, all of that kind of stuff. Like, USC is probably in that range, and that remains the case with the advanced stats. Now, the issue that USC has is just one of perception, and I go back to this from the off season. Like, I can't blame voters for feeling skeptical about what USC brings to the table. And so I'm not surprised that USC is not still not ranked, because I don't think a win over Missouri State was ever going to be. I mean, USC could have beat Missouri State 100-0, and I still don't think that it would have moved the pollsters to like change their mind. I think we always have to remind fans that polls are multidimensional, and that like in the coaches poll, USC lost votes, still not in the top 25, but like the receiving votes, the number of votes that they had went down. In the AP poll, I saw people pointing out, because the AP, we can see what individual voters vote, and people were pointing out that there were a bunch of people who had USC ranked in the teens who dropped them out going into week 2. I will explain that very simply, as those people probably looked at an advanced metric like FEI, FPI, or SP Plus or whatever, and saw that USC was ranked in the 15th and put USC in that range. And then, as pollsters often do, when they came back out of week one and saw, or came back out of the preseason poll and saw, how everyone else had things ranked, they corrected to the median. Sure. So like that's again multidimensional. Like there's reasons why people do that. Mm-hmm. And also you have to factor in that like other teams beat other teams. Other teams had impressive wins. Yeah. Auburn's win over Baylor was more impressive than USC's win over Missouri State. Utah's win over UCLA was more impressive than USC's win over Missouri State. That's just things that USF's win over Boise was more impressive than USC's over Missouri State. Not saying that USC's win over Missouri State wasn't impressive, but USC did what they should have done to a team of Missouri State's caliber, and there will be other opportunities for USC to prove that they deserve to be in those rankings. I guess my bigger question is a Georgia Southern team that just got their ass handed to them by Fresno State going to be a team that also that like gives USC any more credibility depending on how they beat Georgia Southern. I suspect that USC will have to continue to wait to sniff that top 25 until probably sort of like a war of attrition. You get to week 4 and you're 3-0 and other teams have now lost, and maybe you start to climb up there. But like USC doesn't really have an opportunity to show people that they're worthy of being ranked for most of the month of September.
Yeah, and the other thing we talk about SCB 29th in the AP poll. That's not necessarily accurate in terms of like the rankings are the top 25. If they were the top 26, who knows? Maybe most of the voters want SC as number 26, but they didn't rank them in the top 25. Mm-hmm. That would change things. But again, we're splitting hairs. Ron Murray in the chat gets it right. Like, don't worry about the polls, just worry about winning games, and SC will be ranked. 100%. All right, Alicia, SC's going into Saturday's game as big expected winners. That doesn't mean that you can't be a fan of the underdog when it comes to, of course, underdog fantasy, because football season is back, but that means fantasy football is back along with daily fantasy. And so is making picks over at Underdog, my favorite daily fantasy app, where I can play as little as $1, win up to 5,000 times my money. It's all about using your ball knowledge to pick whether you think a player will go higher or lower than their stat projections, mix and match with different sports and different teams, even different players, everything. This week, NFL kicks off with the Eagles hosting the Cowboys on Thursday night. I think I know how that one's going to go. But when it comes to picks on Underdog, I'm picking Jalen Hurts to go higher than 8.5 rush attempts, Dak Prescott to go lower than 246 passing yards, and Devontae Smith to go higher than 4.5 receptions. Join me, make your picks over at Underdog. Download the app today and sign up with the promo code Reign of Troy. That's Reign of Troy, all one word, to score $50 in bonus funds when you play your first $5. That's promo code Reign of Troy. Download the app and sign up with the promo code today. Millions of fans have already won billions making picks on Underdog. Will you be next? Underdog, make picks, win money. It must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama, Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Arizona, Massachusetts, Virginia, and President State where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit ncpgambling.org. And in New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-87778 HOPE-NY, or text HOPE-NY, which is 467-369. Alicia, are you ready?
I'm ready.
To talk about the big one. The game everyone's been looking for a long time. Saturday. Early evening. 4:30 p.m. Pacific at the Coliseum on FS1. It's USC hosting the Georgia Southern Eagles, coached by none other than Clay Helton.
Can I blame Coach Helton for this?
I don't know. We'll see. Clay Helton, in his 4th season at Georgia Southern, the Georgia Southern Eagles, not ranked. Preseason FEI had them at 95th after their game against Fresno State, in which they got absolutely smiggle-biggled in the second half against Fresno State. They're down to 101st in FEI, 88th in offense, 111th in defense, 112th in special teams. Jeff Sagarin has them 93rd in Division One. Last year they were 8-5, 6-2 in the Sun Belt, which is good for 3rd in that conference, 3rd in their division. That Sun Belt is weird. They still got divisions. Of course, USC and Georgia Southern have never met. But SC knows Clay Helton rather well. In 3 seasons going into this, and week 1, he's 20-20, 6-7 in 2022, 6-7 in 2023, 8-5 last year. If you're wondering for things like how is Clay Helton's Georgia Southern Eagles against Power 5 opponents, Power 4 opponents, well, they lost at Ole Miss 52-13 last year. 2 years ago, they lost at Wisconsin 35-14. And 3 years ago, 2022, they beat Nebraska 45-42. Mind you, that was a Nebraska team that had Scott Frost get fired and all that kind of stuff. So take that for what it's worth. But here we go. Clay Helton, Georgia Southern. What are your thoughts? How should SC fans sort of react to Clay Helton walking through the tunnel and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, this is one of the things that I'm not looking forward to either. I'm hoping that the Coliseum crowd does this right, but I don't know. I hope that fans don't boo. I really hope that fans don't boo. I, on Twitter, said that, I think that a respectful round of applause, like a golf clap almost, just an acknowledgement, like the crowd equivalent of like a little hat tip, is the way to do it for Clay Helton, considering 2 things. Number 1, that he, literally all accounts, is a genuinely good human being. And number 2, that for all of USC's faults and failures under Clay Helton, he is still the only coach since Pete Carroll to win anything at USC. He won a Rose Bowl and he won a Pac-12 title. And, in the pantheon of USC head coaches, there aren't actually that many who have done that, frustratingly. So I think that you have to give him his due for winning what he won. I think that I totally understand people who are frustrated by him. I totally understand people who don't care for him. The bad blood that exists, it makes a lot of sense considering, and you and I know this as well as anybody, having podcasted through the whole thing, not being able to turn it off. That there was a lot of misery during the Clay Helton era. But I will say that, I never felt like Clay Helton was adding to our misery on purpose. I lay the misery of the Clay Helton era at the feet of the people who hired him, who extended him, who sort of were content with him being the head coach at USC, because I think he gave them reasons to get rid of him. I think he should never have been hired in the first place. And, if I cannot blame him for taking that salary, as much as people were always saying he should quit out of, he should commit, what is that, samurai ritual suicide or whatever, I can't remember the name of, but, he should do that to himself because of the losing that USC was doing. It's just that's just not how the world works. So, I think that there's a middle ground with Clay Helton, that you can feel what you feel on the negative, because trust me, I do. But you can also acknowledge that for as frustrating as his tenure was, the two best moments I've had as a USC fan, or the highest moments I've had as a USC fan in the last 15 years, two of them were because of Clay Helton. The Rose Bowl and beating Stanford in the Pac-12 title game. So,
yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I think Tim in LA puts it well in the chat. His tenure was a symptom of incompetence at the university and athletic department levels. Don't blame him for anything other than bad coaching decisions. Yeah, he's not a great head coach. He wasn't at USC. He's not at Georgia Southern. Like we said, probably should have never been hired at USC in the first place. That said, just like I've said with like Larry Scott in the Pac-12, you can get mad at the person, and I totally understand why. At some point, when that person continues to be employed, it's the employer's fault. You know what I mean? It's the employer's fault. Cam Life says he won a Rose Bowl. Sark didn't. Neither did Lane. Neither did a lot of coaches. He made mistakes, but nowhere near the worst. Greg says, I will never forgive him for after every loss, he would always laugh and smile.
Okay, Greg, I have an anecdote for you. I was listening to the Gata Talk podcast on YouTube today. Shout out to those guys. It was actually I thought they did a really good job talking. It was fascinating how much they are in the same, like they're living in USC's 2019.
This is a Georgia Southern
podcast.
Yeah.
Georgia Southern podcast.
Yeah.
So I was listening to their podcast post the Fresno State loss, and they were complaining about Clay not being angry and not saying things like this is unacceptable and not, you know, like Greg said, like for being too just sort of level. And it's just so funny because that's the same stuff we were talking about in 2020, 2021, you know, 2019, 2018, all of those seasons. I pulled a quote even from them. I'm starting to understand what USC fans were saying when we first hired Clay Helton. I feel like every time we get our hopes up, we're turning the corner, we're getting somewhere, and then it's this crashing hard reality that we have this disappointment of a game or a season. And the co-host chimed in, it's like an abusive relationship.
Can I blame Coach Helton for this?
Which, I mean, again, they are going through it. They are in the exact same place as USC fans were in the sense of they seem to like Clay Helton as a person. They seem to respect Clay Helton. They are also very frustrated with the Clay Helton experience, which is to say that he gives you just enough little bits, little on papers, we should be good, to sort of be like, it's not too bad. And then you lose this game and you're just like, oh my gosh, here we go again. Can we not? So it is interesting how, you know, the world goes around in that sense, but that's unfortunately that is the Clay Helton experience.
Yeah.
And it is who he is, and USC fans know who he is. And you know, I get any level of frustration that there might be on that front. I also encourage everybody to always try to think of other people as human beings and sort of do unto others. My do unto others mentality is if that was me, or if that was my dad, or, you know, somebody, a friend of mine, I would not want them to go through the humiliation of being booed at a school, at a program that realistically he gave, you know, over a decade of his life to. Yeah. Maybe not over, but about a decade of his life too, for better or for worse, but, you know.
Yeah, I think realistically, I think the maybe the sweet spot is just to nothing a lot of this. In the sense of, like, I don't think he needs, like, he's not going to get a video package because I think it would be...
That's asking for...
It's... Okay, in a perfect world, yes, he would get a video package and people would celebrate the Rose Bowl and all that kind of stuff. At the same time, there needs to be some self-awareness. SC's game entertainment staff, if they put together a welcome back video, it's not going to be received well. But just shrugging, I think probably the best go around with everything. Let's get into the game itself, though. Georgia Southern last week went into Fresno. Went to Fresno State. They play at the Coliseum this week, and you're probably looking at it like, what is a team from Statesboro, Georgia, going to Fresno and LA in back-to-back weeks? We know that, this game is a big paycheck game. I would assume the Fresno State game is a paycheck game too, probably not to the same level, right? At the same time, doing back-to-back road games is brutal. Well, they're staying here 9 days. They are staying in California 9 days. Georgia Southern currently in Oxnard, hanging out where the Cowboys do their training camp, which I believe is just it's like an empty field that they just turn into the home of the Cowboys for 6 weeks. It's wild what goes on over there. But yeah, so they go to Fresno State. They lead at halftime, 14-13. Well, they lead going into about to be halftime at 14-10. Fresno State hits a field goal, 26-yard field goal, as time expires at the end of the first half. Then had one of the most dominant second halves of a game I think I've ever seen. Outscored Georgia Southern 29-0 in the second half. Outgained them in total yardage 316-75. Georgia Southern had 5 drives in the second half. All of them ended in punts, and none of them had more than 5 plays. So what happened? What was the root cause, right? I went and I watched the post-game press conference from former USC linebackers coach Matt Entz, who's now the head coach at Fresno State. What did he have to say, and what did Clay Helton have to say? The answer, coach speak. Clay Helton, well, it came down to third downs. They didn't get the third downs done, and you don't convert the third downs. You don't do anything on offense, and I mean, yes, but
factually correct.
Factually correct, yeah. Matt Entz says they didn't change anything in the second half. They just finished each play. He talked about how the team got into the locker room at halftime is sort of antsy that they were losing. And we shouldn't be in this position, and then absolutely came out in the second half with their hair on fire and just blew Georgia Southern out. This was a game in which Fresno State ran for an ungodly amount of yards. 351 rushing yards. Not only that, you look at the long yardage, 12 rushes of 10 plus yards, 7 rushes of 20 plus yards. So if we get into we'll do this backwards, talking about Fresno State's defense first, going up against USC's offense. This is a defense that they lose a lot. They lose one of their best players ever, and Marcus Trent. I didn't write it down. Yeah, that guy who's over at Nebraska. Latrell Bullard, probably their best lineman who's coming back. 28 career starts coming into this year. First team all Sun Belt. He had 1 tackle against Fresno State. The interesting sort of name is Jaden Davis, a Georgia Tech transfer at safety. Made his college football debut last week. 10 tackles. Interesting because there's preseason first team all Sun Belt guys on this defense. Talk about Bullard at on the defensive line, but then you had Brendan Harrington at linebacker. He's an App State transfer. He comes in 5 tackles in his first game last week. Then you have interesting corners, 2 really good corners, I think. Tracy Hill, he had 2 interceptions last year, 3 tackles against Fresno State in week 1. Then Chance Gamble, 3 picks last year. Transferred in from Kennesaw State. Last year was his first year at Georgia Southern. 3 interceptions. He had an interception at Fresno State and 4 tackles. Alicia, I would say that he is a cornerback in the ilk of a Jason Sehorn. What's the guy from the Eagles?
I was about to say the
guy from the Eagles.
The good old Iowa cornerback.
The guy, Jason Sehorn. Okay, he's Jason Sehorn type, if you catch my drift. But solid.
Cooper DeJean. He's a
modern day Cooper DeJean.
We might be tempted to compare him to Cooper DeJean.
Yes, a lazy comparison to Cooper DeJean. Yeah, Chance Gamble 3 interceptions last year. Like I said, he's good at corner. But Georgia Southern's rush defense just absolutely Swiss cheesed last week. And you look at USC. What did USC do on the ground against Missouri State? 233 yards, 6 touchdowns. We saw the big run by King Miller. If you're looking at SC on offense going up against this, Georgia Southern defense, is there anything that worries you? Is there anything that could reduce SC's chance of at least matching Fresno State's 42 points?
Well, Trojan Fight in the chat asks, is it a bad sign if we don't match the 350 yards on the ground that Fresno State put up on them? I think that is very much a game.
You don't have to match the 351 yards.
Yeah, you don't need 350 yards, but you certainly should be able to run the ball as much as you want to run the ball and as successfully as you want to run the ball. Based on
quality is more important than the quantity, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Like USC could have 200 yards rushing and it come on 10 carries, and so and just sort of leave it at that. I think that this is absolutely a game where you look at it and Wayman Jordan and Eli Sanders and Brian Jackson should all get plenty of opportunities. And if USC isn't giving them opportunities, or if USC is not capable of running against this team, then again, this is a bad thing that we would be learning if that is the case. Yeah. I think that, again, I'm going to go back to that Georgia Southern podcast where they described their defense as a screen door on a submarine. So, it's tough times over in where's Georgia Southern? It's
Statesboro.
It's tough time in Statesboro right now. This is a defense that USC should be able to do almost exactly what they did to Missouri State. And why did USC put up 73 points on Missouri State? Because USC played clean for the most part on offense. So again, this comes back to, you talked about like cleanliness being the thing that you're looking for. Yeah, the way that USC slips up against this Georgia Southern defense is by shooting themselves in the foot.
Yeah.
I don't see enough from Georgia Southern to suggest that they have it in their wheelhouse to shut down a USC offense that is just executing and doing the little things properly. That's the reality. So again, this particular matchup, so much of it it's so reflective of USC more than anything else, because it's not even a 1 game sample size from like, they got blown up by Fresno State and that's the only time that this defense has gotten taken advantage of. Last season they weren't particularly great defensively either. So,
dead last in the Sun Belt in pass defense, 113th in yards per play allowed in the country, 122nd nationally on third downs last year.
Yeah, couldn't get off the field. And so again, if USC struggles to stay on the field, then that's a USC problem.
Yes. With all those defensive struggles, I think it's interesting to talk about this Georgia Southern team because, like, in doing the preview for our season predictions and putting this together, I have a lot of questions. I genuinely have no idea how Georgia Southern won 8 games last year.
Well, how did USC lose 6 games last year? Is it not like it's because sometimes results are
these are questions, right? So many things are just situational. It's the situational mastery. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because last year they weren't special. They won a fair bit of games. Finished 12th in the Sun Belt in both offense and defense, 13th in negative plays. Yet they went 6-2 in conference. Who does that? 21 answered points in the fourth quarter to beat Marshall 24-23. They scored 20 unanswered in the fourth quarter to beat South Alabama 34-30. They even led Boise State. Boise State, a playoff team, they led them in the fourth quarter. And Ashton Genty scored, a million touchdowns in that game. Literally set a record, a Georgia Southern opponent record in that game for all the scoring that he did. But how did they win last year? It was really capitalizing the red zone when they did have the chances. They were fourth nationally in red zone conversions. And they benefited from timely turnovers when they got them. I believe the Marshall game and the South Alabama game had turnovers, and that's what propelled them forward, which is all the more stress that you can put on SC needing to play clean, right? Let's talk about the offense, though, at Georgia Southern, led by J.C. French IV. What a name. Love that. He started all 13 games for the Eagles last year, 17 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. Rating of a $131.9. He was okay last week, not great. 17 of 28 for a $159, 2 touchdowns, an interception. Rating of 24.5. Interesting receiving core. Josh Dallas, Dalen Cobb, Camden Brown. Camden Brown, the transfer in from Auburn. He had 30 catches across his multiple seasons at Auburn. Dalen Cobb, preseason second team all Sun Belt, and Josh Dallas, preseason first team all Sun Belt. So he's got talent at receiver to help him out. In the backfield, it's O.J. Arnold, another Auburn transfer. 63 carries, 316 yards and 4 touchdowns last year for the Tigers. Preseason second team all Sun Belt. A lot of talent. He's a guy that you were saying that the Georgia Southern guys really like what he did against Fresno State. Tough runner inside the tackles, 9 carries, 41 yards last week, but only 9 carries.
Yeah, and the extended highlights that I watched, he was the best thing about their offense. Like he is not so much that he scares me, but like I think that if the vulnerabilities of USC's defense are to be exposed, I think that O.J. Arnold is the one to worry about in the sense that he's difficult to bring down. He seems to have good vision, hits whatever hole is present, and then churns forward. And if you're not, matching up strength on strength there for him and being, staying on top of that, like he's going to get your 5-6 yards just from sheer will. Yeah. But like you mentioned, the Georgia Southern guys couldn't understand why he only got 9 carries. Yeah. Does this sound familiar? A running back who looks pretty damn good, pretty damn efficient, that fans are looking at and saying, like, he could be the focal point of our offense. Why aren't you giving him more to do? They're having that complaint about O.J. Arnold. And again, context.
Another crazy part, I don't want to cut you off here because I know people don't like that.
Well, I'll just say context matters, and like you pointed out in the second half, they didn't really have very many carries or plays to work with anyways. But I will say, like, not considering what I saw from O.J. Arnold, he should have been getting the ball much more than 9 times.
Yeah, he didn't
9 times.
He didn't have a lot of plays. Georgia Southern didn't run a lot of plays in the second half, but and so for that I understand how he didn't have that many carries. He didn't run a lot of plays. He didn't have a lot of success. At the same time, he had 2 carries in the entire second half for Georgia Southern. They were on the second and third play of the half, and they started with the ball, with the lead. They come out first play, 12-yard pass for a first down immediately. One of 3 first downs they had in the second half. And then the next 2 plays, first and 10, O.J. Arnold for 3 yards, and then O.J. Arnold for no gain. And you know what happens when a running back has a gain of 0? You just never go to him ever again. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
yep.
Yeah. SC up and down against the run last week. When Missouri State gained yards, they looked pretty good. They had like 10-yard runs a couple times that kind of slithered through. And, that was where you really wanted the linebackers, SC's linebackers, to step up. And you didn't see a lot out of Desmond Stevens, out of Eric Gentry. So this is an opportunity for those guys to really come into their own and have the sort of game that the defensive line had in terms of making negative plays last week. If O.J. Arnold gets more carries, now is more of an opportunity to be able to help with the rush defense there. Overall, though, any other USC defensive thoughts going up against their offense?
I mean, their quarterback's not bad. Not spectacular, but he, he has experience. He can deliver the ball relatively accurately. I think that he is of the same mold of quarterbacks that USC played last year, that every week we were going into the game preview saying, like, the quarterback's not that good. He's just whatever. And then that quarterback goes on to have, to tear USC a new one.
Yeah.
So it's in that sense, I'm looking at him going like,
that was a 2023 thing, especially.
The last few times I've sort of poo-pooed an opposing quarterback, they've turned out to be pretty darn annoying. So I'm not going to poo-poo JC French. But yeah, again, this is
the fourth, by the way.
The fourth, yeah. This offense is again just. They're not spectacular. They don't do anything particularly great. They
don't do anything great. They don't do anything extremely poorly.
Yeah, like they're medium.
This
is a freaking Clay Helton medium ass team. It's just a medium team, you know. They're lukewarm beer. It's no offense to them, but like they're good enough that if USC gives them an opening, like they can hurt USC. They can find the end zone, I think. But it very much depends on USC giving them that opening. I think the thing that I will caution about is, again, for all the faults of a Clay Helton team, I think that this is also a coach who's pretty good at motivating his team to not give up in games. And we saw last year that this team overturned a bunch of you had a bunch of late surges. Yeah. And so my warning to USC would be don't be in a position where they get a little hope and decide to go on a 21-point,
Yes. I will push back. Yes,
it's not the same.
in Sunbelt play.
Yes.
They were able to, sort of be a cockroach and never die. And allowed them to win 6 of 8 games that way, and a whole bunch of comebacks and all that kind of stuff. I think it's a little bit different in this instance. Obviously, talent level disparity, of course. But I also think that, like, Georgia Southern's ability to get blown out in the second half against Fresno State was also something that we saw last year. Their game against Boise State, they were in it until the fourth quarter and then just got murdered in that fourth quarter, right? Like, this is a team that is very streaky, which is a very Clay Helton thing. And SC has been streaky too, even under Lincoln Riley. But, like, especially Lincoln Riley has had success against G5s while at SC. So I think that continues on Saturday. Before we get into the previewing the Roto meter, Alicia, we got a super chat.
Hey.
From Fighting on MC. I love your show. Keep coming back each year. Well, thank you. We love and appreciate you guys.
We appreciate you greatly, Fighting on MC, especially, we appreciate all of our viewers, all of our listeners, but especially the ones who are consistently in our chat. Like, Fighting on MC has been just a regular. It's
great initials too.
Fighting on MC. Yeah, so it's always fun to see a lot of the same faces coming back. It's also always fun to see new faces as well, but we very appreciate you. Thank you for the super chat. That's very generous.
Yeah. Let's get to the Roto meter. All right, the Roto meter currently sits at 6.5. That's where it did get its spots after the Missouri State game. That's what the Rotbots had to say. Alicia, what from this game would make you feel better about USC? What are the reasons that SC fans are going to want to move it on up?
I think if we see USC shut down the run, if we see the linebacker play be a little bit more at the forefront, be a little bit more in a playmaking kind of mood, I think that this is also a game where I talk about how we can't learn that much, but I will point out that Georgia Southern didn't give up any sacks to Fresno State. That they have a veteran offensive line, again, like USC faced against Missouri State. And this is an opportunity for USC's pass rush to continue to show us that, unlike last year, that they can get home and they can finish those plays, get tackles for loss, get sacks. And if they do that, it will stand out because, we saw a Fresno State team that really shut down that Georgia Southern offense, but they weren't doing that by getting havoc plays. That's not where that was coming from. So for me, if USC's pass rush shows up and has a similarly emphatic kind of day, I will put something behind that. It's not empty calories. It's not empty calories the way it would be if this was a Georgia Southern team that just, averaged giving up 3 sacks or so a game.
Yeah.
And then on the other side of the ball on offense, play clean. I honestly don't care how much USC scores in this game. I just want them to play clean, to not make mistakes. And I think if they do that, there will be points up on the board, and it'll be a perfectly...
Would you take a 24-0?
I mean, I probably want to see USC go up closer to 40.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, if it's the kind of game where we see USC go up big early and just be able to see out the game, empty the benches again, and then, not have scoring really matter in the second half, then that's perfectly fine. I think if USC plays clean, the points will come. This game only becomes a problem if USC is making mistakes.
Yeah, and what's going to make Rotbots want to lower their route meter? I think it's Roto meter. I think it's simple. Lack of concentration, focus, maybe letting the Clay Helton return circus get to them. Mind you, there's a lot of guys on this team who have no idea who Clay Helton is, never met him. A lot of coaches on USC's roster never met him. There will be fans in the student section who have never heard of Clay Helton. We know that college football is a very short lifespan in terms of eligibility, and especially with the transfer portal, all the turnover, all that kind of stuff, right? But I think there's a world where you could ask questions about it. It's on your mind. It could be something that comes up in a pregame speech or whatever. You worry about it, you think about it, and it ends up being something where, it festers, and then all of a sudden you're trailing at halftime out of nowhere, right? Like something like that, I think would put the Roto meter down. One of these days, I'm going to remember that it's the Roto meter and not the Rot meter, or the Rotometer, the Roto meter.
Roto meter.
And then the other thing is, I think it goes down if there's a defensive performance that continues to show breakdowns. There was one really negative play last week. It was that 4th down touchdown. Bad, busted coverage. If you have more of those, I think people could get concerned. What does that start to look like when you get on the road in the Big Ten, even against Purdue next week? What does that start to look like? At the same time, I think SC and Danton Lynn deserve some grace on defense to sort of fix that going forward. But this is their opportunity to prove that, right? Yeah,
100%. And I agree that you if you are having those breakdowns again, that'll be worrying. But also, to go back to the 4th down of it all, if USC continues to, even in a game where they're going to win and win comfortably, if they're giving up 4th down conversions in this game, at a certain point, it's just the trend is worrying. I would like them to put a stop to this trend of giving up 4th down. So
100%. All right, before.
Just one last thing that would make me feel worse.
Sure.
Just pointing this out, Georgia Southern didn't have any sacks when they played Fresno State either. That was a very sack-free game. Mm-hmm. If USC can't keep Mailbag clean this week against the Georgia Southern pass rush that isn't particularly productive, that's a problem. Again, we're looking at a USC offensive line that still has a lot to prove. We're looking at a Georgia Southern defensive front that had just as few sacks as USC did last year, 21. Not great. This year they're already off on the wrong foot on that front. You have to be able to keep the quarterback clean against this team, because if you can't do it against this team, what's it going to look like when you face the more difficult ones later in the season?
100%. Speaking of keeping my oven clean, just very inside baseball here. But when we get images to put into like thumbnails and stuff like that, I always try to get the jerseys that the players are going to wear in that game, right? We've got an issue coming up next week. Jaden Mayava has never played a game in which he's worn the white jersey. Never.
Huh.
He's obviously been on the sideline. He's never been in a game. Last year he played in 7 games. Home game against Utah State, home game against Wisconsin, home game against Rutgers, home against Nebraska, at UCLA, where they were the Cardinal, Notre Dame, and then didn't they wear the Cardinal jerseys in the SRS Distribution Las Vegas Bowl? Am I crazy? Am I wrong about that? Now I'm starting to doubt.
I can't remember.
I have to. I'm starting to doubt this. They did wear white jerseys. Okay. Ignore me. But then he'll have the big patch on his
crisis
shirt.
averted.
Yeah, but have the
maybe
Photoshop out the patch.
Maybe we just don't have Jade Mayava as the thumbnail image. Yeah.
Anyways, let's get to game predictions. Vegas has the Trojans by 29.5. FEI projections has SC winning 42-15 with a 99% win probability. Alicia, what's your score prediction?
I'm going 40-17, but I think that USC will not lead by more than 10 at halftime. It'll be maybe a slower start, and then not a direct mirror of the Fresno State game, but USC having a little bit more fun in the second half.
I am going to go 51-13. I said in our season predictions episode that things will be weird going into the second quarter, that there might be something where, SC is down 14-10 in the second quarter and then wins by 30. There's a big part of me that believes that just because, like, that's cosmically, that would be the most Clay Helton thing, but also funny. It would be objectively funny if SC trailed Clay Helton at some point in this game, right? Like, objectively, it would be funny.
Yeah.
Having said that, the Fresno State game, the way the Fresno State game went, I can't decide if that makes it more likely that it will play out like that, because that's exactly how the Fresno State game went. They led in the second quarter, they led going into halftime, and then got absolutely Bartle smeared in the second half. Not
only that, but they led in the second quarter, but they started to break down. Like, Fresno State had sort of started to find their feet in that middle eight, and USC, not closing out the first half, I want to say, was an issue.
Yeah.
In the past.
Yeah. So, like, yes, the Fresno State game is a prime example that it could happen, because that's what happened against Fresno State. At the same time, that second half was so bad, and they were so exposed in that second half that I have a hard time imagining that SC actually will have any trouble in this game for a second.
Like, maybe it wasn't about Georgia Southern in that first half. Maybe it was literally just Fresno State shooting themselves in the foot. And
maybe. I don't know. Yeah. I go 51-13. I kind of feel like this is going to play out very similarly to last week, in which SC has controlled the entire game. They do give up some points early, but it's not really a lack of control. So, yeah, maybe SC leads this game 14-10 in the second quarter, and the score looks a little, but in reality, it's not really a kind of thing. So, I don't know. 51-13. Ron Murdy says 48-14, but maybe 56-10 Fight on Natty says at least 55 points. So, yeah, we will see. Let's get to the mailbag, shall we? Is the button going to play?
You got mail.
All right. Start with a voicemail we got from Tai Tai.
Hello, Michael. Hello, Alicia. This is Ty Ty calling from Austin, Texas. I just wanted to talk about rhetoric that's been happening around this opening game about how it doesn't matter and how we played cupcakes. My question as a USC fan is, even when playing teams that would be considered cupcakes to us, when have we seen USC dominate anybody since the Caleb Williams days? And even then, they do need to build up some character. They do need to build some adversity. But I think this team, with Lincoln Riley being in the state that he's in, after having gone 7-5 2 consecutive years, I don't think that we needed a tough game to come in. Let's get a layup. Let's get into a rhythm. Let our players get into a rhythm and let them get a feel of what it means to dominate somebody. And then hopefully Georgia, Southern, and Purdue look like that. Illinois should be a team that we beat handily. I'm not saying we should boat race them, but if we're going to be Big Ten competitors, we should be able to go and just flat out look better than the teams that we're playing, especially with the talent on our roster. This is the first time that we as fans have gotten to see that in a couple of years, where we're just on the field with somebody and we look like we can look at the field and be like, okay, yeah, that team doesn't belong on the same field as this team. Fight on. Y'all have a good one.
Thanks for the call. Hell of a call. Mm-hmm. I nodding the entire way. I will say, it does sound funny to say back in the Caleb Williams days. SC has played 14 games without Caleb Williams. But, 15 because of the Holiday Bowl. He didn't play in the Holiday Bowl. But it feels like 90, doesn't it? Like, it feels like a long time. In part because, like, the Caleb Williams era was almost split in two of, like, the Heisman year and then the other year. Yeah. So it does feel like forever, 1,000%. But yeah, I think Tai Tai absolutely nailed it on all points there.
Well, especially because from the key players, particularly on offense, that USC needed to be out there playing clean, which has been the theme of this episode, really, we saw them do that. And I would say that playing clean is not something, even with Caleb Williams, I would say that USC, I would not give them a reputation for being a team that tends to play clean. Caleb Williams, they just had better players and they got out of, were able to put a beat down on because of that. But there was still a worrying level of sloppiness that would occasionally rear up and put USC on the back foot. And in that sense, I think it gets more difficult to play clean the more formidable your opponent is, to be sure. But we've also seen USC shoot themselves in the foot against teams that had no business being on the same field, like Tai Tai said. So you sort of take what you can get. Yeah. And if USC is going to come out and be disciplined and on top of things and do the little things right, that's a really, really good sign. That's a really good sign. I believe that this is going to carry through against the tougher opponents until I see it? No, because I'm seeing is believing as far as I'm concerned this season. But I won't deny that it is a good sign if against Missouri State you can take care of your business and not make too many mistakes. And it will be a good sign against Georgia Southern if you can take care of your business and not make the mistakes that turn games that would otherwise be blowouts into nervy affairs. There's a certain level that you want to see from a team, and not everyone. You look around college football each week, and more teams play that sloppy game than play the perfectly clean game that USC more or less had, with a few handful of exceptions, but I'll take a handful.
Yeah. 100%. You got to start somewhere, and yeah, obviously you'd love to win against a LSU in week 1. At the same time, you got to build confidence some ways, especially when SC is coming off of seasons in which they haven't necessarily looked confident in parts. And last year was a hard year because that broke a lot of people's spirits.
Yeah.
Being so close, like it would have been easier last year if SC would have been bad. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like if they would have been 6-6, but like nowhere near winning the other 6 games that they didn't win. Right? That was not the case last year in the regular season. Let's go into the chat. Funny IMC says, "Who votes in the AP? Are there more SEC members than other leagues?" There's a list of, if you go to collegepolltracker.com, you get the full list of all the voters, but you also get to see every individual person's vote. I don't have the breakdown off the top of my head about which conference has more voters than others, but like you just scroll through here and there's people all over the place. There's this guy works for MLive, covers Michigan from Ann Arbor. That's Aaron McCann. Reese Davis has a vote in the AP poll. Kirk Bowles, who covers Texas for the Houston Chronicle, is in here. Brett McMurphy from the Action Network is more of a national guy. There's literally a guy named Randy Johnson who covers Minnesota, which is great. Michael Lev, former SC beat writer, covers Arizona for the Arizona Daily Star. He's in here. Mike Hill from Fox Sports, the anchor. He's in here. There's just a bunch of dudes. So go to collegepolltracker.com. I would urge people to go there and see the distribution of how people are putting in their polls. And maybe one of these days we can sort of walk through it and really take a list about who has the most pollsters anywhere. But just look at have you looked at this so far this week? Like, have you seen who ranked SC the highest?
Well, I'm looking right now. It looks like Greg Maida from the Daily has USC at 19. That's the highest I've seen so far.
Yeah,
John
when
Wilner,
you hover over them, they highlight.
Yeah, John Wilner has USC at 20. Here's the highest one. Sam McEwen of Omaha World has USC at number 13. Again, I will point out they have USC at number 13 and Oklahoma at number 12, which tells me that this is somebody who is using advanced stats to they have Utah at number 7.
You know what's cool? If you click on this is the biggest endorsement for collegepolltracker.com ever. If you click on the person, it tells you their inherent biases. So Sam McEwen, he has biases towards Florida and against A&M, North Carolina, and Arkansas. So I'm guessing that just means historically he ranks those teams higher or lower compared to everybody else, which is interesting. That's really interesting how that works. But you mentioned Sam McEwen has SC super high at 12. Look at the people who know SC. Michael Lev does not have SC anywhere on his poll.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. Like, we talk about like SEC bias and all that kind of stuff, and I'm not saying that doesn't exist. I think it absolutely does exist. You have to accept that bias just simply exists by its very nature. Mm-hmm. It's hard to get rid of. But I'll also say that sometimes the people who are closest to your program see more of your warts, and so sometimes the people who aren't like this guy from the Toledo Blade who has USC ranked number 23, like it's possible USC's ranked there because he's not thinking about USC's warts in the same way that like a Michael Lev might be aware of. I'm not trying to.
I'm just going through here really quickly to see the people who would be tangentially around the conference or whatever who see SC semi-periodically. Andy Yamashita from the Seattle Times as SC unranked. There was a guy in here, Eric Hansen, South Bend Tribune, has USC unranked. He also has Notre Dame at 9th, which is like kind of smack dab in the middle of with all the Notre Dame rankings. So like I don't think that the bias is really there on like I don't think
bias is keeping USC out of the top 25.
Yeah.
I think USC's record last year is keeping USC out of the top 25.
Yes.
To be quite honest.
Yeah. Kirk Kenny, San Diego Union Tribune, USC unranked.
Well, like only a couple voters have Oklahoma unranked, and it is kind of funny that one of them is from the Fort Worth Star and the other one is from Arkansas.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Randy Johnson does have his alma mater ranked 24th. Not the same Randy Johnson, but we can pretend. We can pretend that is renowned photographer Randy Johnson. Yeah. 100%. All right. Anything else you saw in the polls that you wanted to get to, or in the chat that you wanted to get to? I'm scrolling here.
Yeah, I don't know.
There's a lot of great comments. We got more predictions, by the way, where Tim in LA said SC should be in the 40s and Georgia Southern should not get to 20. I'm good with 45-17. Cam Hammer says I agree. I would agree to bet on them scoring, meaning Georgia Southern, but we're going to score way more, 56-21. Ordinary Adonis 87 says, keep up the good work. Look forward to listening to the rest later. Appreciate you. So, yeah, as always, email us, radiotroyfanside.com. Phone number, 818-643-7227. Give us your calls. Call in for a rant line or rave line, however you want to do it. And we'll go from there. We'll see you Saturday night, probably about 8:30 again, after the USC Georgia Southern game. Also, Alicia will be doing her live watch along. So come join us right here on YouTube for that.
Yeah, should be really fun again. Hopefully, touchdown Trojans. Yeah, come to the touchdown calls.
All right, y'all. Until then, we will see you. See ya.
See ya.